Welcome to another expert interview from Holistic Home Journey. Today, well, you know who I am, Crystal Kanata. I am a parent coach, holistic parenting coach, and personal growth coach. And today I'm talking with Hava from Raised to Flourish, and she is a sleep specialist. And Hava, we have been so excited to talk to you because I get so many questions about sleep. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So Hava is a mama of two. She is founder of Raised to Flourish. So she helps moms kind of break through the mixed messages and like tons of information that society feeds us and sort of allows us to trust our mama instincts and kind of, just sort of release some of the pressure around sleep. So I've really loved your content. Let's sort of jump in with talking about what biologically normal sleep looks like. There's a lot of like information and myths around it. So let's just sort of clear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So biologically normal sleep is basically everything that our babies are designed to do naturally. So it's not, what we're fed through the sleep training industry. It's often not even what we're, educated about from healthcare professionals. It's what our babies have been doing for thousands of years, what they're naturally designed to do. So the biggest misconception about biologically normal sleep is that, or just sleep in general, is that we have to teach sleep. Now, couldn't be further from the truth, really. Of course, we can absolutely support better sleep through healthy habits, rituals, but you do not need to teach your baby to sleep. You do not need to teach your toddler to sleep. They know exactly how to do it. They have been doing it, from the womb. Babies sleep in utero. So this is kind of the biggest thing, one of the biggest misconceptions that, I really want to work to clear up and ensure, parents really understand that, if they're not choosing various sleep training methods, no matter what they're doing, they're not doing anything wrong. Their baby is likely sleeping very normally, even if they're wakeful. And night wakes, very, very normal. Us even, past the first year of life, we always hear about wakeful babies, but it's actually incredibly normal for even toddlers to wake, once, twice a night. If it's a little bit more, that's something on the less common side, but some things like that are very, very normal. Those are, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's funny because we are so trained that like babies should be born and then sleep like according to our sleep schedule. You know what I mean? Like if I had to all of a sudden start like working nights, right? And I had to completely switch my sleep schedule, I'd be pretty mortified too. And I'd probably have a really hard time. So asking the baby who just like came out of this place where they could sleep and wake whenever they wanted, right? I remember my daughter like kicking in my stomach while I was in the middle of giving presentation. So it's like, so it's how much of it is we're trying to make the baby immediately conform to our schedule instead of saying, hold on, what does this child's need? Like, what are they naturally kind of telling me that they need?
Yeah, exactly. And tuning into our own individual babies, the world is full, and even as, in all realms, parenting, and in all realms, there's so much generic, one size fits all advice. But the reality is all of our kids have such different temperaments. They have different sensory needs. They have different personalities. And what works for one baby is not going to work for, every baby. And, the trusting your instincts as a parent to get to know your own little human is so important.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So with a lot of us were sort of taught that, and I like videos of Super Nanny kind of like roll through my head of like mom sitting outside of the kid's bedroom while the kid is like screaming and crying and the mom is heartbroken, right? And it's like they're both basically like longing for each other, but you're supposed to sleep train them. So what is your thoughts around like sleep training, and is there a different way than like the Super Nanny way?
Yes. So absolutely. There is definitely different ways, and in my opinion, much, much better ways of encouraging healthy sleep. The ultimate thing about sleep is that it is a time of separation for our kids, babies and toddlers. It's often, they're not necessarily right next to their parents. And even if you're in some sort of co-sleeping situation, they're still going to their unconscious, right? They're not necessarily seeing their parents in their dreams. And that can be alarming to our kids. And so really having an understanding of the connection needs and the attachment needs of our kids is so crucial to, supporting better sleep. So absolutely, there's, in my practice, I don't use any sort of separation-based method because I believe that, at the root of all parenting challenges is that need for connection and that need for attachment.
So
So
what is your
working,
thought when parents, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
no,
What is
no.
your thought that when parents, my husband had this fear because he slept in his parents' bed till he was like almost 8 years old. And he's like, we're not doing that with our kids. And I'm like upset because my youngest doesn't want to sleep in my bed. So what is your sort of advice to parents who are weary of allowing themselves to have that attachment with fear that they won't be able to break it later, or that it will be harder to break that attachment later?
For sure, for sure. So the root of true attachment is a deep dependence on their caregiver. True attachment comes from deeply knowing that their caregiver is a secure, safe place for them to depend on, and then feeling that freedom to explore from that base and then return. So specifically relating to co-sleeping situations, all children at some point will sleep on their own, whether it's a parent-led change or whether it's a child-led change. That just depends on what works for your family. Right now I'm sleeping with both my kids and I love it, and I don't see us transitioning out of that anytime soon. But for some families, that could be super stressful for them, or they're not sleeping right because they're constantly being kicked in the head by their 2-year-old. So it's always okay to make those parent-led changes, but still doing it through connection, letting your child know that if they need to, they can return to the parent bed if they need to, or they're going to spend the first half a night in their own separate sleep space, but then they can return, if they have a scary dream, or, whenever they feel that need for extra connection.
Yeah, with my oldest, she loved sleeping in our bed. And out of ease, we would just like let her sleep in the bed. And then when we tried to transition her, it was like so funny. And then you get in the habit of being like, well, if you have a nightmare, then you can come in our room. So she would we would put her to bed, and then she'd be like, I had a bad dream. I'm like, you didn't even close your eyes yet. So then we had to switch up even what we were saying. Like we were just like, listen, mommy and daddy have to get good rest. So we're gonna have rest in our bed and you get some rest in your bed. If in the middle of the night you feel like you want some cuddles or you need something, you can come in. And that's kind of like how we did it with her. And then my youngest, she just doesn't even want to go. She don't care. She wants her own space. She's like, don't touch me. So
And some babies are definitely more that way. Absolutely.
too
Yeah.
funny. So hot topic in my community tends to be, how do you transition to sleep? And so I don't know if there's two separate topics or kind of one topic, but there's trouble with naps. And I have my own kind of opinions on naps and things. But a lot of parents would like for their kids to go down for a nap at a certain time, and as the children get older, there's a lot of fight back with that. They don't want to go down, they want to play, they want to be up. And so questions around that, and then also the bedtime routines, so how do we transition into naps, how do we transition into bedtime routines?
Sure. So I'll address them kind of both together and then I'll separate them a little bit. Sleep transitions can always be a little bit tricky because, again, the same thing, there's the fear of missing out, especially if you've got an especially busy kid. They're like, well, I'm doing a million things. Yeah, I don't want to sleep right now. Right. And then, of course, it's the separation. It's that calming down of the nervous system. There's so many different things that play into it. As far as transition into sleep, so for bedtime and nap, I would always suggest a little bit of a routine. So a little bit longer for bedtime, and then a mini, kind of like a shortened condensed version of that for nap time. So that could look like reading one storybook, singing a song, and patting your back for like 5 minutes, and then you're out, kind of thing. For bedtime, it might look a little bit longer. You might, add a little bit of a bath or some roughhousing tumble time. All of these different things can really help transition little ones into sleep. Another thing that is kind of less common known is that a lot of kids actually need some extra sensory input before they go into sleep. So something like jumping, something like rolling your baby or your toddler kind of into a blanket and playing burrito, and having some deep pressure, things like that can also be incorporated into routines to help that nervous system calm down. And the more predictable that is, the more of a rhythm it is, typically it makes it a little bit easier. Now, on the nap topic, in specific, naps are typically dropped anywhere between like 2 and 3.5. Some hold on to a little bit longer. But if you're finding that naps have become a battle, I would always suggest taking a step back. As soon as sleep becomes a battle, that's when sleep is just not going to happen. Taking a step back, you can even try transitioning to some sort of quiet time, but really ultimately keeping as much of a positive association around sleep, including nap times, as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Like my oldest stopped taking naps around 2 years old, and I was like mortified. I'm like, no, especially hold on, we have somebody joining. Cool. Especially when like I had a work schedule that was set up around her nap times, and I was like, oh my gosh, she can't stop napping. But what we did is that just becomes like quiet time. Like you can read a book, you can play with your stuffed animals, you can play with your Barbies. You don't have to sleep. I can't tell you what to do with your body. But it is quiet time in our house right now. And that was the same thing with bedtime. Like there are nights that my daughter is like, well, I'm not tired right now. And I'm like, well, you don't have to go to sleep. Here's your nightlight. Here's your stuffed animals. Here's all your things. You can talk to yourself. But setting that kind of boundary of it is time for the household to be kind of calmed down. You do what you feel is necessary for your body, but this is what's happening kind of like in the house.
Yeah, exactly. Setting those boundaries too are so important, and realizing, again, exactly like you said, we can't control sleep no matter the age. We can't even control our own sleep, right? And so whatever that they need to do with their bodies, whatever, maybe they're going to sit by their bed instead of in their bed, but setting the boundaries that we can set. Okay, you're not going to sleep, but I'm going to my room and you're going to stay in your own room. Or it's okay, you're not going to sleep, but I'll sit next to you. But we're not, playing puzzles right now, or whatever it is, and supporting those emotions that will, inevitably come along with whatever the boundaries are that we're setting.
So when we talk about like keeping sleep sort of like a non-stressful thing, which if you watch any of my videos, like my whole thing is reduce the stress. Like when something feels really hard and stressful, either the boundary is too firm or you're setting a boundary around something that you don't have control around, like something you need to like zoom out a little bit, right? And so sometimes people will ask me about punishment in terms of like, go to your room, go sit in your bed. And we were always told that like, go sit in your bed, and the intention there is that now you're like in timeout and you can't touch anything, you can't play anything. But then at bedtime you're sort of like, well, I don't want to go to this place that now I feel is punishment. So what are your thoughts on using beds and bedrooms sort of in that punishment way?
Yeah, I mean, generally in my practice, I don't anything separation based, I really want to avoid. So if we're sending, children away from us, I really feel like anywhere that's related to sleep or other positive things, or other things that, let's say you've got a schoolroom or a whatever bathroom, we don't want those areas to be negatively associated with being sent away from our primary caregiver, who is our rock or attachment figure, right? I love the idea of calm down corners. But even if it's if there's boundaries that we're holding, we should be drawing in our children to us. Maybe they don't want a hug right now, but sitting next to them and holding space, and, not really associating any place in the house with punishment or separation or something that is inevitably really scary and alarming to our children. And instead, holding those boundaries, supporting the emotions, and bringing them to us.
I love that. That's awesome. Very cool. So if you're watching live, you can drop some questions in the comments. I see a couple that came over. We'll talk about it in a minute. But Hava, if people are sort of like resonating with this, they're having issues around sleep, where can they reach you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm mostly on TikTok. I do also have an Instagram. My Instagram is Raised to Flourish. My TikTok is Hava Parenting Mentor. And I'm mostly on there. I do lives every week. And, if you ever have any questions, always, I love taking comments and kind of making videos about them to help support families. Because the ultimate thing that I really want parents to feel is just feel confident within their self. Society places so much doubt and, even just fear about ruining our children within parents. And the fact of the matter is, as long as you're focusing on attachment and connection, you're not, and being responsive and tuning into your own unique child, you're not going to go wrong. You're really not.
Yeah.
But
And
it's so hard.
comments sometimes, I'm sure that you get them too. And they're like, I'm not doing this as good as I should. Like, I feel like I'm failing my kids. I'm like, the fact that you're on my TikTok account right now, like watching holistic parenting videos, like tuning into my lives, like you are good. You know what I mean? Like you're making the effort, you're understanding that your children are little humans, you're being respectful, you're doing the best that you can, like literally the best that you can, because you're learning, and unlearning these generational sort of cycles of behavior. So yeah, if you're here, you're watching this, you're watching it on replay, you're a rock star. You're doing great.
Absolutely.
So all of Hava's information and like how to contact her will be inside of the Holistic Home Journey community. It's under expert interviews, and that'll be under sleep, of course. But we will take a couple of questions. We have a few minutes here, so we'll take a few questions from TikTok. So if you're on live and you want any questions, it could be about sleep, but also I think you do some like holistic parenting type stuff, right? So,
yeah, that's right.
Cool. How common is it for kids to need activities like jumping before bed? Also, is that related to age?
So not super related to age. Every child has different sensory input needs. So if you have a little bit more of a highly sensitive child, typically those kids need more sensory input to downregulate their system. So often you see those kids being more aware of their surroundings, but also needing more input, if that makes sense. So less so related to age. I don't really have like a statistic of, 50%. It's really just, trial and error. But if something like jumping or deep pressure doesn't really seem to be working for your kids, don't do it. Another thing that you could try is laughter. Anything that induces laughter. So whether it's, I'm not personally a fan of tickling. So but if there's other ways that, if you're running around the house or making funny faces at each other, something like that before bed can be so incredible because it actually helps release melatonin. And of course it's, really fun and connection building. So that's some other things that you can try as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's funny how like each kid is different. And honestly, like every night could be different. Like there are nights, that
Yeah.
I'm like, Zoe, do some jumping jacks real quick because you got to get this energy out, girl. That there are other nights where she's like mushy and just ready for bed.
Totally. Yeah.
I will share really quick before we hop off. We have a certain night routine, and actually, maybe this will be a fun way to sort of end it. I'll share my like nighttime routine, and then you can share yours. So just maybe some ideas. The person who asked that question says, "Thank you. I noticed my daughter runs and screams right before bed when she's generally very calm." Cute. Okay, so what we started doing, because you all know that I'm on this like personal growth journey, right? So I was doing, I called it my daily good. So I was just like kind of every night thinking about one good thing from that day, and I would write it down, and it really helped me. So then all of a sudden, somehow it like turned into a family thing. So now, like right before bed, we all kind of sit down together, and we each one at a time will tell our favorite part of the day. And then we also talk about tomorrow. So we'll say, like, my favorite part of the day was XYZ. We all go around, and it sort of makes you think through the day and find like all the positive pieces. And then the talking about tomorrow part really helps, because then they kind of go to bed, and I'm like, all right, get your sleep, like get lots of sleep, because we're doing this, this, and this today, tomorrow. And then they're sort of like excited to go to bed so that the next day can happen.
That's amazing. I love that you're naturally doing that, because that's actually in kind of the attachment world, we call that bridging. So what you're doing is you're placing your kids' minds not on the separation that might be alarming of sleep, but you're placing it on the next day. So they're saying, oh, I'm so excited to do XYZ with mama tomorrow.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't
Yeah,
know
that's
that was an
awesome.
official thing.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Did you feel comfortable sharing sort of what helps you in your—
Yeah. Yeah. So my kiddo is definitely on the more highly sensitive sensory input needed spectrum, I guess you could call it. So we have one of those toddler trampolines. She will bounce on there for at least 20 minutes, hopefully, before bed. And that really helps her calm down. We do some books. And I sing a couple goodnight songs, and then we just snuggle right to bed. And it's there's always ups and downs, especially my little one's 2.5. So definitely some nights are more successful than others, but we try to go with the flow as much as we can.
That is awesome. Well, was there anything else that you wanted to sort of add before we hop off?
Um, no, I think we're good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I've really loved it. And if anyone wants to connect with me either about sleep, I work with kids 6 and under. So I try to create lots of content for various ages, but a lot of my content is more baby focused. But if you've got toddlers and you need a little bit more support, I would love to connect with you on TikTok.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was fun. I appreciate
Yeah.
you. All right, bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.